And greetings and salutations, one and all. Welcome to your Monday ritual, or I guess your weekly ritual, because we've been bouncing around the last couple of weeks. The Ultimate Hockey Show. I'm Michael Dell, joined as always by Rich Petty. I'm sounding a bit different. That's because I feel like I'm actually doing a broadcast today, because I'm wearing my full blown headset, among other wonderful things. So, good evening, Rich. How are you?
Very good, Michael. How about you?
Oh, now I'm having trouble hearing you, but that's on my end. I'm dead. I'm dead. Pretty dead. Along with our Winnipeg Jets, who had two massive victories, or three massive victories. But I'm telling you about the last two, because that is pretty darn important. Those last two wins.
Yeah, but they've won three straight since our last show, where I said they were going to go 2-0-1, and you said they were going to go 2-1. So I was a little bit more, or I was a little less wrong than you were wrong. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the good news is that you and I can both concur that that 0-6-1 or 0-5-1 slide from earlier this year um, is rather forgotten about.
Yeah, they've won six in a row since they lost six in a row, and now they've won six in a row. Very strange. Which team
Very
is going to show
strange,
up in the playoffs?
very strange indeed. Here, I'm just trying to adjust some volume settings as we go. So trust me, it's just on my end here. Um, but that being said, Rich, what do you feel for this week? I mean, obviously, the first game against Nashville wasn't exactly anything to write home about. Um, I thought the Jets were thoroughly dominated. I think that would be um, correctly stated. However, Connor Hellebuck, in true Hellebuckian fashion, every once in a while, is able to stand on his head and preserve the Winnipeg Jets' victory over Nashville. Your thoughts on the Tuesday game before we talk about the rest of the road trip? And I think obviously the most important two games of the season after that Nashville game.
Yeah. The Nashville game was okay. Like yeah, they got outplayed at times, but there are other times that they outplayed Nashville. It just wasn't they weren't consistent in that game. There were stretches where I think it was especially the second period where they were not very good at all and allowed way too many shots. And Nashville, I think, totally dominated the second period. But they scored enough goals to win. It's all you need to do. You need to score one more than the other team. So I don't know. I agree with you. Sometimes you're not going to win every game 5-0, right? The other team is pushing their will against you, and when you're not on, you're tired, you're off your game, whatever. That's when you need somebody else in your team to step up. In this case, it's the goalie, and I think both Brossoit and Hellebuck this week just showed like the Jets are in really good place. If Hellebuck gets injured for any reason, I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying it can happen, right? Anything can happen, but the Jets are really set up well. They've got depth. They are they've got as they have the best, I believe, the best goaltending tandem in the league. I think they have the best starter and the best tandem in the league. They have the number one goals against average. I was just having a look now, and they'll probably win the. I don't know if there's is there an award for the goals against? I think there is. Oh,
Yeah,
is
no,
there an
so
award for the goals against, like lowest goals against for the year?
yeah, they are.
No, I know what they are. I'm asking you if there's an award for the
Yeah, there is.
lowest goals.
There is. It's called the William Jennings Trophy.
Okay, the Jennings. Well, they're going to win the Jennings Trophy. The only way is if they lose 5-0 tomorrow and on Thursday, and Panthers somehow win their game 5-0. Then because the only one that's even close is the Panthers. They're 4 goals behind, and they have one more game, or they have one less game to play. So,
So the
um,
so Florida only has one more game left.
yep, Florida has one more game, and they've got 198 goals against, and the Jets have 194. So,
Let that sink in for a minute, Rick. I mean, take me back to the preseason, and maybe we can both have this discussion. Because I've been you kind of correctly and succinctly led us into the last two games, where the number of goals given up in both games is a big fat bagel. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, but if you would have told me, and I would have told you either or, Red,
The Peter.
Good.
um,
I'm on the radio right now. Okay, you have to go out.
the
Sorry.
Winnipeg Jets would give up the fewest goals in an
Yeah.
80 game season, what would you have told me?
Yeah. I would have said, "Are you sure? You're speaking about the right team?" But yeah. And that's those last two games, that really tells you something. Like which team, I mean, I said it earlier, I don't know if you heard it, but
Yep.
which team are the Jets going to be in the playoffs? Are they going to be the team that went 0-5-1 12 games ago? Or are they going to be the team in the last 6 games that's won 6 in a row? These last two games, if the Jets play that way, I mean,
The Jets,
you can, and
nobody didn't beat them in
well,
four
I
out of
don't know if nobody
seven.
could beat them, but they could play with anybody. There's nobody that's out of their league. If they play like they did the first two periods, well, the first three, all three periods for Dallas, and the first two against Colorado. I think in the third period they just get sort of a rope a dope, but dump and chase. They didn't want to embarrass the Avalanche. They're just trying to keep the puck on. They came to center ice and always were dumping it in and dumping it. But those first two periods, I mean, that was a clinic. Colorado couldn't get anything going. No speed through the neutral zone. They supported the forwards. The defensemen got the puck out of their zone, moved the puck up. They pinched. They had really good gap, to use a Paul Maurice line, and it was so technical. It was so much fun to watch. And you figure, oh, it's boring defensive hockey. No, it's not. You turn over a ton of pucks. You get a lot of chances to
It's
score. How many? Look how many great chances they had to score. It could have been 10 or 12 nothing. I think they
yeah,
missed. Scheifele had a breakaway that he missed on completely. Missed the whole
yeah.
net, or I think he hit the crossbar. Whatever. I mean, it could have been 10 nothing. It could have been 12 nothing. So yeah, Eh, the Jets can play with any. If they play like that, they can play with anybody. They can beat Colorado. They could beat Dallas. They can beat Vancouver or Edmonton or Vegas or whoever comes out of the Pacific, and they could beat whoever comes out of the East, whether that's the Panthers, the Hurricanes, the Bruins, or the Leafs, whatever. So that or the Rangers. That to me is not a problem. But what I found interesting, I was going to mention to you as well,
Yep.
is um, okay, sorry, I just lost my train of thought here, but where was it? Well, maybe it'll come to me later.
While you're looking that up,
Yeah, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But anyway,
yeah, no, that's okay. Um, maybe I'll trigger your train of thought by talking.
okay,
Um, where where did this come from? Because uh, I I think we've been correctly on the record with on this show, on various other shows in this city. The Winnipeg Jets have kind of lost their way since that run in December and January. There's the fraction of the class, or the portion of the class, if you want to say, yeah, but Red Bonus's system is hard to play for 82 games like that. Are you surprised that they were able to somehow find their game? I realize it's 2 games, but you can't start the discussion with me about, oh, Dallas had nothing to play for. Dallas was playing for first place and the President's Trophy. Then, Saturday, you can't tell me, oh, Colorado had nothing to play for. Yeah, well, they had 3 days off. Their last game was Tuesday.
yep,
They were playing for home ice with the Winnipeg Jets last I checked. So
yep,
that notion of the other teams laying down like sacrificial lambs for the Winnipeg Jets to have 2 wins, but absolute brilliance, I'm not buying any of it because both those teams had just as much to play for as the Winnipeg Jets. Dallas could have won that game and won the division. Instead, it needed to bring an even better effort on Saturday afternoon against the Kraken, which did happen. But
yep,
to me, Rhett, when I look at Colorado, I don't look at what happened on Saturday. I look at what happened last night. 3-0 third period, in complete control of the Vegas Golden Knights. Oh, and then the wobbly wheel happens in the third period. Not one, not two, but 3 goals. And Colorado winds up losing. in overtime 4-3. Jared Bednar already not happy on Saturday. If you heard some of the quotes coming out of Ball Arena after that game, I can't imagine what he said yesterday. Although they have the bat-to-bat excuse if you really want to use it. Um, but boy, oh boy, Rich, to me, I would be really frightened if I'm a Colorado Avalanche, and I'm not portraying who I'm going to pit here in this series, but to me, we saw something abundantly clear. The McKinnon line, the rest of the lineup was rather quiet in both games, Saturday and Sunday. The goaltending, don't even get me started. One
Yeah.
goalie was far superior than the other goaltender. And listen, the scores have been 6-2, 4-2, and now 7-0. I'm not trying to say that the Winnipeg Jets are going to beat the Colorado Avalanche. But if you're saying that you're going to turn this around and this is a 2-week problem in Colorado, you're kidding yourself. I'm sorry. You're kidding yourself. And it's unfortunately at the worst possible time that the goaltending for Colorado has been so suspect all year. Alexander Georgiev, and then we saw that Annunen, that guy that came in, who almost did absolutely worse than their starter, Georgiev. Like, if I'm Winnipeg Red, I can sleep calmly and great at night, knowing that you're not trying to Hellebuyck. And hey, something goes wrong, Laurent Brossoit.
Yep.
To me, the one point is I think Colorado is too much of a one-line team, too much of a top-heavy team as we speak, and I think their goaltending is a big problem relative to the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I'm not saying Colorado can't turn this around, but outside of that McKinnon line, I don't think anybody posed a relative threat to what
Mhm.
the Winnipeg Jets were able to roll out lines 1 through 4.
Yeah, and the Jets are on the road. They'd even get last change if they wanted to match up Lowry's line against McKinnon. They had to do that on the fly after a face-off, right? And sort of do it as the lines transition through the zone or whatever. So I yeah, I agree with you. Like I'm just actually having a look here. The Jets, all the Jets have to do is get 1 point in their next two games, either an overtime loss or a win or one win, and they have 107 or 108 points, but even 107 points. Colorado only has one game left. So if Colorado gets 100 and they have 105 now, so if they get 107, the Jets still win outright by head to head. So all the Jets have to do is get 1 point in their next two games and they get second place and they get home ice advantage. But I would posit this to you. I agree. I think Colorado is very susceptible to getting goals scored against them. I think their goaltending hasn't been good. But the only thing is like that, honestly, not concerns me, but sometimes it's funny when you're the road team in the playoffs, especially the team three, like this in Colorado and Winnipeg are so close to, I mean, it's like a difference that's going to be of a point or two between second and third place and having home ice advantage or not. Sometimes when you go on the road, it's easier to play that style of game, that whatever you want to call it, the Rick Bonus style or whatever. You get it home, the crowd gets behind you, the whiteout comes along, and then maybe you don't play the way you should, and whatever. So it's going to wait to be seen. But I agree with you. For me, this matchup is Hellebuck and Brossoit versus against Georgiev and whoever they put in net in Colorado. Because
Annunen or Unanen, whatever his name
right
is.
now, it really doesn't matter. The Jets could even, like they might even be able to outscore a goal or two, a weak one being let in on Hellebuck because Georgiev is going to is going to let in lots of goals. Like he has just not been sharp. Hey, just on a side note, do you remember who did Colorado have in net when they won the Stanley Cup?
It was Varlamov.
Yes, it was Varlamov. Yep. Yep,
Yeah, it
that's
was
what it was.
it was Varlamov. If Eric is
Yep.
watching, he can tell us this.
Yeah, it is. And he's now with Washington, right?
Islanders.
Islanders. Okay, yeah. No, you're
Yeah,
right. That's what it was. Because I was wondering, they had pretty good goaltending at that time, and they've lost Varlamov and they've lost Kadri, which are two huge pieces in the mix for like if you
right.
say who are the key pieces to that win the Stanley Cup? Yeah, McKinnon was there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But Kadri and Varlamov were the two. Those are the two kingpins in that whole mix that made, and they just have not found replacements. They haven't found a dynamic second line center who can score, and they haven't found a goaltender to give them the same level of goaltending. And there you go. That's your that's your situation with Colorado. So, Michael, I know we're gonna have our show on Friday, but I really believe like the Jets, if they focus this way, they may not. I have a feeling actually, just on a side note, because I'm going to the game on Thursday, which is kind of going to irk
Me
me with
too. Me too.
yeah. But if they win against Seattle and they get those 2 points, I think they're going to sit some guys on Thursday night. Not everybody. They obviously can't sit everybody, but I think they're going to sit Shifley and maybe I don't know, maybe Connor. I don't think they're going to sit Velarde. Already sat lots. But anyway, and they might sit Josh Morrissey too, and maybe like a Demelo, and then play Schmidt and Miller instead. So we'll see. But yeah, I think the Jets up against Colorado, they have a very good chance of winning against Colorado in the first round. So has it been decided yet who the Stars are going to play, or no? Is that still
No, it looks like it's going to be Vegas as of right now, but could also be LA. Whoever doesn't finish third in the Pacific.
okay? Because 99, yeah, 96 and 97, yeah. I guess Nashville has one more game. All Nashville has to do is get a tie in their or win or a tie in their last game, and
Yeah,
then
and
they
they'd be wild card one, and they'd probably
yeah
take on Vancouver.
yeah
Probably. Unless Vancouver loses their last two games and Edmonton wins out.
yeah. But okay, but right. So it's going to be a crossover. So that means it's going to be either L.A. or Vegas that plays the Stars.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
To be honest, I would be terrified if it was Vegas. For me, if I'm Dallas.
Good. Good. Let them be terrified. Good.
To the other opinion, like, oh, finish first in the West. Your reward, the defending Stanley Cup champions, who red eye roll apparently are getting Mark Stone back. What timing?
Yeah, I know. It's a miracle. It's a Festivus miracle. It's an IR salary cap miracle. It's yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
And
that's besides the point. We know how we both feel about that.
yeah.
Can we talk about the snail's race in the East about who wants that last spot between four teams? It is just ridiculous. Nobody wants it. Third in the Metro right now is the Islanders, but you got Washington, you got Philly, you got Pittsburgh, and you got Detroit all battling for one spot, unless you're in the Metropolitan, where you kind of have a way in to beat the Islanders to the third spot of the Metro, but
Potentially, but that mean yeah, you'd have to win out, and Islanders would have to lose out because Islanders are 3 points
yep,
ahead
yep,
of Detroit, Washington, and Philadelphia, and four against the Penguins. For me, a week ago when we talked, this spot, this second wild card here, or this wild card was the Penguins to lose, and they have just been lousy the last three games.
yep. Well, they
They
lost their last game, and then Detroit just keeps surviving, winning in overtime,
yeah
beating the Leafs and getting a late goal there. And the game before, they won in overtime. Pittsburgh uh, got a point there, and then Pittsburgh won in overtime. Pittsburgh didn't look good against Boston. Boston had a lot to play for on Saturday. I'll be honest, it was me on the couch day on Saturday watching all the hockey.
yeah
Right from the morning till right at night, there was seemingly every slot had a playoff implication game.
yeah
And Rich, we're listen to this. We're 3 days away from the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we only know one matchup.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It's
Well, no,
unbelievable.
it's going to be no, it's going to be the Bruins and whoops.
Is it? Florida
Oh,
could still
it's going to
finish
be. Oh, you
first.
think that Florida has a chance to leap over the Bruins? Well, I guess it's possible. Boy, the Bruins have a lot of overtime losses. They took a lot of games to
Yeah.
overtime and lost. Wow.
Yeah.
But
You want to talk about overtime.
yeah,
Islanders 29 in the ROW category. Just remarkable. Just remarkable.
yeah.
Um,
But let me tell you this though. If you're asking me, yeah, okay, it's a snail's race. I still think when I look at this now, and it also makes sense from a goal differential standpoint. Like for me, to have Washington or Philadelphia make it into the playoffs and be minus 40 and minus 25 in goal differential. I mean,
Never mind
that is awful.
Philadelphia having a
That's
6 or 7 game losing streak 2 weeks ago.
almost as bad as in the CFL having a 8-10 team that make the playoffs in second place in a division. That's awful. So that being said, my prediction is still that the ship will be righted. Good will prevail over evil. Good goals against will prevail over bad goals against. And Detroit will get the final playoff spot. They have 2 games left. So they got one more game to play over Philadelphia. And they got the same amount
Boy,
of.
is that not an enormous game tomorrow night if the 3 teams above them lose tonight?
Who's that?
Okay, well, let me pull this up here. Whoops.
The
As
only
I
one that
just
has a chance to beat out, I believe, to beat out Detroit is Washington because they got the same amount of points and they have the
right.
same amount of the games left over. Pittsburgh has one less game to play or has one more point behind. So they really have to have a miracle. I don't think Philadelphia can do much with only one game left. So it's Washington or Detroit in my mind.
So
I just hope it's
so
Detroit.
so let me paint you a scenario then.
Okay.
Washington loses tonight. Detroit loses tonight. Pittsburgh loses tonight. Okay?
Yeah.
Philadelphia's last game is against Washington. The winner of that game tomorrow night is in the playoffs if the other 3 teams lose tonight.
Okay. So Phil, and they're not playing against each other? None of the 3 games?
No,
No, okay. So if Philadelphia, you're saying if Washington loses, then they've played the same amount of games, same amount of points. Now they play against Philadelphia, and now Philadelphia wins. They get to 89 points. And then I guess,
correct.
okay, and then the Penguins are, they wouldn't be able to catch because they'd be at 86, wouldn't be able to get to 89. And
They'd
then
be able to get
Detroit
to
would have,
89, but lose the
Detroit will have one
tiebreak.
more game left. But who wins the tiebreaker between Detroit and Washington or between
Right
Philadelphia?
now, 37-34. So Detroit would win the tiebreak.
Why? Because of what?
ROW.
Right out wins?
Regulation overtime wins.
Okay.
So
Against
basically,
okay,
yeah.
so
So
that's against both Philadelphia and Washington. Detroit has the best standing.
Washington is in right now. It's a 3-way tie between Washington, Philadelphia, and
Detroit.
Detroit with
Yeah.
varying amounts of games played, 80 versus 81.
Yeah.
In this scenario right now, the Capitals are in.
Okay.
So of the 3 teams, let's just make this extremely simple.
Okay.
Of the 3 teams, if the Islanders win, they are in. If the Capitals win, they are in. Those are the 2 teams that control everything that happens. Detroit needs a regulation win in their last 2 games to get in. And Philly might not even have a choice tomorrow. They might be eliminated tonight.
Yeah, I think they will be. So Washington really controls their own destiny too. If they win tonight,
Correct.
because then they would push because then the best that Detroit could do. No, if they win and lose and Detroit wins their last 2, then Detroit leapfrogs them.
Yes, but Washington plays Philly tomorrow.
Yeah, but if Philadelphia wins, I'm just saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of inclinations about what could happen.
My money is still on Detroit. That's what I shouldn't say. That's what I'd like to see. Probably end up being Washington, but I'd like to see Detroit get in. But anyway,
I want to ask you something about the New York Islanders. They were
yeah,
they were done like 3-4 weeks ago. What
yeah,
happened?
they played really well. I'm looking here. They've gotten 15 out of a possible 20 points in their last in their last 10 games. So
Boy, oh
there's
boy, would I love for Carolina to win the Metro and the Rangers to finish second.
and play
And
New York.
we have a Rangers Islanders first round matchup. Bring it on. So, but let me ask you this. What are some of the consequences, if any, for teams that miss? Is there a consequence in Washington if they don't get in? Is there a consequence in Philadelphia if they don't get in? Is there a
Wow.
consequence in Detroit if they don't get in?
Okay,
Pittsburgh if
well, I
they
can
don't
first say
get
this.
in?
Detroit, no, because they're a younger team. They're retooling. They had a lot of injuries this year. So, and they're on the step up. Like them being this close, they're a lot closer than they were last year. So for them, they are moving in the right direction. So Detroit is in a good place. Washington, they're kind of interesting because they're hanging on to that old wood there in Carlson and in Ovechkin. And I think they want to see Ovechkin break the Great One's record, goal scoring record in a Washington uniform, but it causes problems because you got older guys there trying to mix in along with a whole bunch of younger guys, up and comers. So I think Washington's kind of in I wouldn't say a rebuild phase, but kind of a transition phase, if you will. So I don't think they're going to kill anything. I would have thought for sure Philadelphia, after being so up and now dropping, Tortorella would be on the outs. Like I predicted, like I told you,
Yep.
that messaging only works for so long. And eventually players go, they don't say it, they just go, la, 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 la. Look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, look at Patrick Laine, look at
Mm-hmm.
Boone Jenner, look at whichever player you want. It just doesn't
Sean
work.
Couturier, maybe if you want to put it
Couturier,
this
like
way.
another great player. So I'm just saying, and what's shocking is, at least I heard right now, I wasn't sure if it was ownership or if it was Daniel Briere, but they said the plan is to stick with Torts for next year. So whatever happens. So
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
then
And then
Torts
what about the
complained.
Penguins? What are the Penguins going to do? I told you that they're not going to
They're,
do it.
they're they're in the mushy middle, whether you like to admit it or not.
They are not going to do anything. They're not changing anything of their path until they do something about the four old guys. The four old guys. They've got to
Crosby,
get rid of
Malkin, Letang,
two.
Carlson, for those that
Correct.
don't
They've
know.
got to get rid of two of those four old guys. Say, we appreciate you. We love you. We love everything you've done for our organization, especially you three who have been here for like 15 years or whatever it's been. But we've got to cut bait and we got to get younger. We'll give you a chance to go to another team with a chance to win the cup in your twilight years here. Away we go. That's what
Just
Dubas has to do. Does he have the stones to do it? Does he have the willingness of ownership to do it? I don't know. But that team, the path that they're on, they're not getting off that path until they get rid of at least two of those four guys. That's my opinion. So,
here is the situation for me though.
yep.
Both those guys are 10+ million. All of those guys are around $10 million in cap space.
Yep.
To move either of them, you have to probably set up a significant amount of cap space to.
Significant? Maybe half. Maybe half.
Okay, so I'm saying, are you okay paying Evgeny Malkin $5 million to play for somebody else? And what
Yeah,
would
but
you?
you free up salary cap of $5 million on your own team, and you get back a prospect.
What do you get back?
Well, Malkin still has 2 years left. Malkin, Crosby, and Letang all signed 3-year deals at the beginning of this season. So they
Correct.
all have 2 years left on deals that pay them, like you say, anywhere around 8 to 10 million. I don't know exactly what it is, whatever the
Yeah,
number is, roughly. So I'm saying,
Carlson double digits for sure.
Yeah, I think Carlson's 10.5 or 11. But I'm just saying, if you trade away, I'm just saying hypothetically, you trade away Carlson and Malkin, and you got to eat, let's say, 10 of the 20 million owed to them each year of the next 2 years, whatever. But you get a couple of high-end draft picks. Maybe you get a young prospect. You get younger. You free up cap space. You free up $10 million. Like I'm just saying, it's way better than buying out, because buying out, you end up eating more on the cap side for a longer period of time. But you got to find somebody that's willing to dance with you, right, on a trade deal. But who wouldn't want to bring in, like, if, like, let's say you're somebody, and especially after the playoffs are done. So you're a team. I don't know. I'm going to use this as an example. I don't know what the example. Maybe the Bruins. The Bruins get really close, but they don't make it, and they got those guys, Pasternak and Marchand. They're a little bit older, whatever. Maybe you bring on a couple of guys, senior guys, to kind of this last push. Now, could you see Crosby in a Bruins jersey? Hoya moya, that would be something else. That would be hard to. Or seeing a Malkin in or Crosby. I don't know if he would be the one to retrade, or Malkin in a Penguins or a Bruins jersey. That could be something you could see. I could see one of those, especially same thing with Panthers. If Panthers don't make it again, they're right on the cusp. Maybe they go out and they get a Malkin or a Letang to be that one extra piece to push them over the edge.
To, to be honest, Rich,
yeah,
this rebuild, what we're talking about, or this retool, if you want to call it that, so I don't think it's a rebuild.
For who? For the Penguins?
More and more owners hate the R word, so we'll call it a retool.
Okay.
To me, it's 2 years too late. You don't have any assets in my mind that are going to come and gonna make this a 1 or 2 year fix. The way it is,
what you could get back, you mean?
Yeah, like you're too good. You're too good to be a lottery team. You're too bad to not be in the playoffs. I believe we call that the middle.
Yes, and you've traded away a lot of draft picks and prospects already to bring in Carlson and to bring. No, you got back something when you traded away Jake Gensel, but
and now you're trading it. You're trading all those guys for pennies on the dollars, though. That's the issue.
Correct, and you're right. You're not going to get great in the short term, because if you trade away, let's say you trade away Malkin and Letang. I'm just saying hypothetically, what do you get? Maybe you get a first round draft pick and a prospect, maybe, and then you have to eat half the cap. I don't know, whatever a team would be willing to do. Well, the first round draft pick is not even going to play for the next, even if you get it this year, it's not going to play for at least another 2-3 years in terms of development. And the prospect, maybe next year, maybe the year after. I don't know. Maybe you get a young player in return. You're right. This is not, see, and I guess maybe they're not at that point yet. In my mind, Pittsburgh's ship has sailed. They are not going to be able to do anything with this gang, with this band in place as is. They can't.
Well, let alone they don't trust their starting goaltender, Tristan Jarry.
Exactly.
It's spoke loudly, but you'd rather go with Alex Nedeljkovic and run him to the ground than have what used to be a reliable option in Tristan Jarry play on Saturday. That, to me, says a lot.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, even beyond this season, though, I'm just talking about beyond this year, they are not in a position to do anything in the short term. And that's what I guess somebody was saying. I don't know who it was, but I thought that's really good because they deserve that. I could see Kyle Dubas sitting down with all four of those guys at the end of the season individually, maybe as a group too. Maybe as a group would be good, but for sure individually, maybe as a group, and saying, I tried, we tried, it didn't work out. I need, because he's got a long-term deal, Dubas. I think he's got 7 years there, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, and he's got president role too. So.
I have to move this cart in the right direction now. I can't wait another 2 years until you guys are done your contracts and then start the process of getting younger and retooling. I got to do it now. But I also want to give you guys the opportunity to waive your no trade clauses and to go to somebody that's a contender. Are you willing to do that? Have that conversation. Like, I don't know what it means to Crosby to be like to be like an Iserman, to stay in the same team for his whole career for 20 years. It was Iserman's the exception. You got guys like Wayne Gretzky, Ray Bourque, Patrick Waugh. There's lots of superstar players that ended up going to a
Wayne
different team.
Gretzky. Yeah, you
Wayne
mentioned that one.
Gretzky, Mark Messier. There's lots of them, superstars that went to other teams and won cups in other cities or had great opportunities in other cities at the end of their career because it just didn't work out with the team that they originally had success with. It's a possibility. So if they are okay with that, if I'm Kyle Dubas, that's what I'm saying. If I'm Dubas, I'm having that conversation with all four. If all four want to go, because they see like Dubas is saying, because it's not fair, right? Like, let's say hypothetically he trades Malkin and Carlson and brings back young players or prospects.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to Crosby and Letang, who are left over? It means their team
Mm-hmm.
is even less talented than it was before. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just who
Yeah.
goes; it's who
Let
stays.
alone you
It's
don't
the
have
idea
Jake
that
Genso anymore. So
what's that?
let alone you don't have Jake Genso anymore either.
Correct. So I'm saying staying may not be a good prospect if the other two are going already. So that's what I'm saying. I would have that conversation. If I was Dubas, I love these four guys. They're going to be all Hall of Famers. They've been great for our franchise. Have that conversation, move them out, start the process of putting that ship in the right direction right now. You're not going to be good next year, but you know that going in. But you tell the rest of the guys, this is where we're moving. They all see it. You get lots of
I,
prospects and lots of draft picks back for trading those four guys. You got to eat some cap, but that's okay. You know why? Because you're going young. And by going young, you're going to have guys on entry level contracts. So you're going to have room to eat $20 million of cap from those four guys for next year.
it's interesting because I think we're also talking about the New York Rangers in this sentence. Because remember John Davidson at the time? He wrote the letter. It was Jeff Gordon actually at the time. He didn't use the word rebuild. This was about 3-4 years ago now. He said, "We're going to have some difficult times," and I'm paraphrasing, "before things get better." Look at where the Rangers are now after a bit of a tweak and a bit of a retool. Rebuilding is so hard to do. You're at the bottom for so long. That's why I think the Winnipeg Jets stayed away from it this last offseason. And that's why I think being able to retool on the fly is a bit of an easier goal than trying to blow this thing up, just as the Edmonton Oilers prior to
Right.
this little run of endless first overall picks and very little results.
Right. But you don't know what you got. Like, look at
Right?
how the Jets were. We've had this conversation. Look at what they could have done if they would have known Bufflin was not coming back. They could have
Correct.
signed Sherratt. They would have had money there to sign Sherratt and whoever else they lost. Maybe Myers, but they probably didn't want to sign Myers to $6 million like he got in Vancouver or whatever it was. But I was thinking
Yeah.
you could have kept Sherratt. You could have done some others. Same thing with this. Look at the Jets. What would the Jets be this year if both Hellebuck and Scheifele had decided, you know what? I know you guys are retooling. Yeah, but we want a fresh start somewhere else. Imagine
Yeah.
the Jets without Scheifele and Hellebuck. They wouldn't be in second place in the Central. I could tell you that. I don't know where they'd
No, they
be.
wouldn't be. They would be
I
probably,
think
I
they.
would dare say, in the Celebrini sweepstakes.
I don't know if they'd be that. They might be just on the bubble. They might have been a wild card team, maybe. But I'm just saying it changes everything when you get sort of like just a guy here or there, sort of deciding what he's going to do and stay or go. So I don't know. I don't think all is lost in Pittsburgh, but in my mind, that that group of four guys, it's that party is done. In my mind, it just can't continue because they're not going to make the playoffs this year, and they got to do something. They got to set the ship in the right direction now and not wait another 2 years because fans are going to be upset that they're spinning their wheels for 2 years watching Crosby and Malkin and Letang on their swan song contracts looking good one night and then looking terrible 3 nights in a row and only winning one out of 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
So
Well, Dan, you're right back where you came from, and it's a waste of people's time
yep,
and potentially somebody's job on the line.
yep. So
And
is
to me, Rich, just one final thought.
yeah.
I would have paid to have been a fly on the wall to see how Kyle Dubas and what he said to Penguins ownership about how he planned to have long term success with the team in its current state last summer before coming over. That to me would have been one very interesting conversation to be a part of. Is yes, Kyle, how do you deal with, your Super 3 and now Super 4? And, let's be honest too, Kyle Dubas hasn't had the best of track records either. I mean, to me, he seems to be building the Penguins the same way he built the Leafs with Tavares and Nylander and Matthews and all those types of guys. To be honest, he was the guy that traded for Carlson. He's the guy that just gave Tristan Jarry a 5-year contract, and oh yeah, he's been riding the bench for the last, 3 weeks. So
Some of the deals, some of what he's got is his own doing. I mean,
right,
he did it. He signed those deals. So I
and he,
don't.
and he gave up bad capital to try to push this group one more time, and yeah, I'm just thinking like ownership in Pittsburgh is very, very patient, but at some point, this doesn't just become his predecessor's problem. It becomes Kyle Dubas's problem. And the
Correct. But
question is,
we
when does
right,
that happen?
right. And we don't know. You don't know that listen, to me, it says a lot of what was done and what was not done. What was not done is Kyle Dubas was not signed to a 2-year deal and then a show me kind of thing from management or from ownership.
Right.
Ownership signed him to 7 years. Then ownership says, go get Carlson, go load up,
We
and
want to win one more
yeah,
time.
we want to win. We want to keep the band together. So I'm sure that comes from ownership and from the fans and from hockey operations and whatever. So now they decide to do that. It hasn't worked out. In my mind, Kyle Dubas is not on the chopping block because management, senior management, hockey operations, and ownership, they, in my mind, had to have blessed this decision making. And now, whatever they decide to do now will be blessed by senior management and ownership as well. And in my mind, I
Here,
believe this offseason they are cutting bait. Mark my words, by start of next year, 2 of those 4 guys were gone, and it would not surprise me at all that all 4 were traded to other teams and they went young. Away we go.
here's a
That's
question for you,
yeah.
just on the way out with two about a minute or less, if you can, Red. That I want to ask you about some breaking Winnipeg Jets news.
Okay.
That is this. Where do you see Mike Sullivan and all of this, the long-time coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins? You can't possibly fire him after this year, can you?
You're not going to fire him. But the only thing, I think he just signed another long-term deal. He signed a
He
long-term deal
did,
two
and the
years ago.
problem is he didn't want to sit through a rebuild or a retool.
And this is the thing. Just like Paul Maurice, just because you have a contract, it doesn't happen often. But sometimes coaches say, you know what? I'm not getting through anymore, or that's not my vision, or that's not my plan. I don't know what Mike Sullivan's plan is, but I agree with you. If they decide to go sort of cut bait, get rid of the 4 guys and go younger, is Mike Sullivan willing now to go down and take a young team and build them up again or not? Maybe Mike Sullivan says, you know what, that's great. I love this time with these guys. But if that's the way you're going to go, I'm okay with going too. And you guys can start with a young coach, young players, and kind of build the whole thing up. And I'll move on and go someplace else. Interesting question. I don't know Mike Sullivan. I don't know. He's been there a long time. Not sure if he'd be willing to go sort of that down and then come up again with young players.
And if he's even going to get that opportunity, because as we saw, even with the close by Paul Maurice, there is an expiry tag. And look at how Paul Maurice has bounced back in Florida. 2 top-notch teams with a top-notch general manager who signed a contract extension today in Bill Zito. The other breaking Winnipeg Jets news: first rounder Rutger McGroarty staying at Michigan for one more season. Your thoughts?
Good. Let him season.
You think so, eh?
Yep.
You're not worried about him not signing and leaving for nothing for another team?
No.
And
Does he have to sign by next year?
nah, it's either next year or the year after. But
Yeah.
after the year after, he becomes a free agent.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
interesting. To me, I think it's the right call. That the Jets have no room on their current team. And are you going to put that kid in the Stanley Cup playoffs game one after not being there all year? And the kid's probably looking at it. If I'm going to start the year with the Moose, I might as well spend one more year with Michigan and then come out next year.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
because I've been
But who did the Moose take though? They did take the Colby Barlow, right?
yeah. So Colby Barlow was assigned to the Moose by the Jets. Connor Levis was signed to an amateur contract after his WHL season was done. And then they had one guy from Minnesota Duluth. His last name starts with an A. He was on the back end last night. Anholt or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
making his pro debut yesterday along with Colby Barlow. But he's a defenseman. So you can see the Jets starting to work up the prospect pipeline. Brad Lambert, the year we had 2 first rounders, he was the pick of in the first round there a couple of years ago. Brad Lambert, he was named Moose Rookie of the Year, second in the AHL in scoring, and the Moose have overcome a 0-10-1 run to finish the year at 20-10-3, and they will make the playoffs in the Calder Cup playoffs, believe it or not, off the back of young netminder Thomas Milich, who was a draft pick of this past season.
Where is Chaz Lucius?
Injured.
He was with the Moose, right?
Yep, another second straight year, but he has a significant season-ending injury to his shoulder.
The shoulder injury. Okay.
Again.
Okay.
Yep, it's one of those things, Rick, where you got to be healthy to make an impression on the team.
Yeah.
If you're not healthy, the road just becomes that much deeper. Apparently, and not also including the significant injuries that were suffered.
Yep.
Not like these were back or minor groin pull or tissue injury. We're talking about significant shoulder injury 2 years in a row.
Okay.
It's like Matt Pacioretty, right? The torn ACL and torn
Yep.
Achilles 2 years in a row. Very, very hard to come back from.
Hey, I want to make a couple of statements here because you're just giving us.
Go ahead.
I love the fact that the Jets have put Gustafson on that third line winger
let's
with
talk about
Appleton
that.
and Lowry. Number one, because, and I like Cole Perfetti. He's got great ice vision, great passer, but you know what? He gets pushed around. He gets knocked around in the playoffs. He's going to get beaten like a rented mule. And
Yep.
I love it for a whole bunch of reasons. I'll throw this out there and hear what you have to say. I love it for the fact that Gustafson, he's a big cat, just like Nino Niederreiter, who's replacing. He's very good defensively. It's a second face-off guy when they're out there on that line already in the defensive zone when they're matched up against the other team's top line when they're playing at home. You saw that against Colorado when he was matched up against McKinnon's line. And the other thing I like, and not that I'm hoping for that, but if there's an injury to either Lowry or to Nemestikov, Gustafson can step right in. Even on the third line, he could play that center line defenseman or defensive centerman between Niederreiter and Appleton if they had to, if they lost Lowry for some reason. So I'm saying I love Gustafson there. I think Cole Perfetti, he's on the outside looking in through the window with his nose up against the glass. And the only way he gets into the lineup is because of another injury. Because when Niederreiter comes back, the big question is going to be, where does Gustafson go? Do they push Gustafson out of the lineup? Maybe they push him down to the fourth line and Nemestikov goes out. I don't think they will because he's a veteran and he's still very good on many other ways. But it's a great problem to have. And on the back end, I want to tell you this: Logan Stanley. People have been ragging on him. He's 26 years old. He's been 8 years since he was drafted. Third pairing with Samberg. That might be the biggest, toughest third line pairing of a team going into the playoffs this year. I love the fact that they've got him in there. He's playing third line or third pairing minutes. He's killing penalties. He's playing his game simple. He's tough. He clears the front of the net. He's got a big cannon of a shot. I love it. I love the fact that Logan's. I always thought, that's the one thing. Can they get larger on the back end? Can somehow Stanley or Miller push out Schmidt? And I think Schmidt and Miller, they're on the outside looking in. If everything is normal and everybody's healthy, Schmidt and Miller don't play. Starting lineup in the playoffs is the defense as we have it, and probably Niederreiter goes in for Gustafsson. I don't know where he goes. Gustafsson, does he bump Iafallo or Morgan Barron out? I don't know, but nice problem to have. How do you see it?
No, I agree. I think we just kind of stumbled upon another option for the Winnipeg Jets, because I think David Gustafsson has kind of been the forgotten sort of person, and now that's kind of turned into Rasmus Kapari, who we seemingly haven't heard from in a couple
There's
months.
another guy. There's another guy. Him and Cole Perfetti can be playing. They can play Connect Four upstairs in the press box, because that's all they're going to be able to
here's
do.
the thing, Rhett, and we got it over because we're almost out of time.
Yep.
I just looked at that now. We have a lot of time to discuss this on Saturday, if we want, or in the off season, or on Friday night. Pardon me. I think here's where we sit, and I think you'll agree with me. Cole Perfetti only comes in for an injury in the top six, because I don't think Cole Perfetti is the bottom part of the lineup player, unless you want to inject some energy into the bottom part of the lineup.
I would agree. He has to play with skilled players. I would agree. He can't be a grinder.
This Gustafsson, Niederreiter, Barron, Nemestikov trio, to me, that's interchangeable. The Jets' fourth line has found something here in the last week and a half. They've been really good. This Lowry line has been really good. The second line now with Monahan and Ehlers has been really good. Talked about a savvy deadline move by Kevin Cheveldayoff, not overspending and finding what I think is the mere perfect fit for that line. To me, I think there's going to be a lot of options next year. If Tyler Toffoli doesn't come back, now you can put Cole Perfetti in that second line spot right there, and then you have a Perfetti, Monahan, if he comes back. Then you can put Perfetti there, so you got Ehlers, Monahan, Perfetti, second line, along with Scheifele, Connor, and Ehlers. You got options, right? And
yep.
I think, bottom line, Rich, if the Jets want to get to where we think they need to go, and who's kidding who, it's 16 wins in the Stanley Cup playoffs to win the Stanley Cup. I think that's where we need to start thinking with the Winnipeg Jets and this group in particular, and why they can't get there and why they should get there based on the last week. I think we should be thinking big with this group this year. But that being said, you will need 14 forwards. You will need 8 defensemen if you ultimately get to where you want to go. So, mark my words. Opening night lineup at some point next week or this weekend for Game 1 would be remarkably different in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final if the Jets, if and whenever, get there. So the bottom line, you have options. Mm-hmm. And Gustafsson, to me, has been proven a very effective option if somebody else gets hurt. And, hey, you really want to deal with that next year and what your trading looks like? Let's deal with that in the summer. Let's move a couple of those forwards for an upgrade on defense, if you will. You got a question about Nate Schmidt now, who suddenly can't get in the lineup. Dylan DeMello's contract is expiring. To me, Logan Stanley's played in that top 6. He's won that spot. I expect him in the lineup in Game 1 just for the fear presence of the opposition. And boy, oh boy, Rick, I am so excited for this playoff run, because I think, as currently constructed, and we can argue about this on the weekend if you want, I think this Winnipeg Jets team, as currently constructed, is better in more ways than one than that team in 2018.
Okay.
You got a better goaltenders. You probably had the better defense in 2018, but you certainly have the better forward group depth wise. I think to overcome maybe what some are perceiving to be defensive deficiencies. But again, who knows, right? If you can roll Nate Schmidt into your lineup as option number 7, I think you're sitting pretty compared to what certain other teams have as defenseman number 7. I know that was just a long sort of
Yeah, it
tangent.
was a long comment. I don't know what you want me to say. Yes? Okay. Okay. We gotta
Well,
go. We're up
you
against
sound
the clock.
you sound like you're agreeing with me because you're not saying anything.
I'm agreeing. We're up against the clock. Just so you
Yeah,
know, Washington plays the Bruins tonight. They won't win. Detroit hosts Montreal. They'll win.
well, that game's starting right now. National
And
TV
Detroit
tonight.
plays back-to-back Montreal. They play Montreal tonight at home and tomorrow
Yep.
in Montreal. So
Yeah, so
very
it's gonna be
possible for them to win 2 games.
it's going to be very interesting, Red.
Yeah.
As Red teased,
Hey,
we will be back at some point on Friday night with our playoff preview show. Boy, we might have to extend that show, but we'll talk about that when we come back. And I am just so excited. Nonetheless, we will see you on Friday for the Stanley Cup playoff preview show. For Red Petty, this is Michael Dell saying thank you so much for watching. Whoops. Good night from Winnipeg.